Like I said, like a lot of people I work with are a lot like me, and like they're really high strung and like anxious and worried, and I am, but I also know like, well, none of this matters, like.
What you're putting in, all your hopes and efforts are all in vain. Who will pick you up when you've lost everything? Does it all become for granted with a wedding ring?
Hello, Hello, I am here to, okay, hello, hi, sorry, okay. Hi all, I am here to introduce you to this project, You Are Not Alone. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey, to watching this episode. I encourage you to check out the explanation and the purpose and the motivation why I'm doing this project, and how as Christians we can look at the Enneagram in a healthy way and use it as a tool. So I encourage you to check that video out first before you watch this episode. And I'm so excited to present to you these three amazing women for the Enneagram number 3. Two of them I didn't really know at all. One I got to work at camp with, I got to get to know her a little bit more through that, and so I'm really excited to let you hear their stories and how they look at different information that the Enneagram presents. And I hope that their stories and these interviews encourage you in your faith, inspire you, and especially remind you that you are not alone in anything you're going through. God is always with you, and He provides people to also encourage you in your faith as well. So, without further ado, I present Enneagram number 3.
So we're going to talk, this preview is going to be the essential message that this number received often as a child. And it was a wounding message, or a message that told them they're not enough, they're not worthy, it's not okay. And then I will also give you the essential good message that they need to hear, the thing that their hearts are longing to hear. Number 3, it's not okay to have your own identity or your own feelings, to be celebrated for yourself. And the message you are looking for is that we love you for you, not for your achievements, not for your degrees, but for who you are. So their heart is in everything they do. And it's kind of confusing sometimes because they're very good at masking their desire and vulnerability. They step into a room and they think, how can I get these people to admire me and value me? They're in this, again, forward motion in a room to get achievement, attention, performance. They have to produce something outside of themselves. A song is outside of you. A joke is outside of you. You told it, but you have to do something. Again, it's that earning, striving kind of mentality. And they're excellent at it. They're not telling bad jokes, let me tell you. They're telling good ones. They genuinely perform in their wheelhouse. Genuinely extremely talented people. They're really great in a team because they're, again, like they're moving that train forward. You're typically really accomplishing a lot of things because that's what they value and that's what they connect to their identity. The underside to that is that they are doing it so that you will love them because they don't believe that you would love them without that talent. Like they don't trust in their own inherent worthiness. They must put things out for you to consume, and that's how you will connect. So they get their self-esteem and their recognition and their understanding of who themselves or who they are and their value by other people saying, wow, you're so talented. Wow, oh man, you're just so beautiful and wonderful and everyone wants to be with you all the time because it's so great. And it's like they want to please, they want to impress, they want to have just like wonderful conversations with people. They want to be their very best.
Yeah, makes sense.
Thing is, you can't be your best all the time. And they have a real shame if they're not able to do that. If they let people down, it's really hard. If they're in a season of their life where it's winter and they're not producing any fruit and they're working really, really hard and they're not getting the things that they need, they have a really hard time with self-esteem. They can, it's a defense mechanism. They can project an identity that isn't true to themselves. They can create, they're really good at, we're all good at it, but they're very, very good at it, creating a mask that's really attractive, but then they can feel really disconnected because then they think, it's the Mr. Darcy. You only like me for my money.
Yeah.
You only like me. They do all these things to get these connections, but then they don't feel like those connections are real. They wrestle with wanting to feel authentic, but not trusting that you would actually want to get to know them. And then when people are genuinely like, yeah, like that's amazing, that's like really attractive, then they can kind of second guess it. So they can have hard times in relationships because they really have to dig deep into that vulnerability to be like, wow, like, do you like me for me? Do I like me for me?
Right.
Who am I? It's a disconnect consciously, but unconsciously they're deeply motivated by their heart.
Okay.
And it's because they're so motivated by their heart that it is a terrifying and very vulnerable position to be in. And therefore they set up all of these things to protect that very, very vulnerable heart. So again, it is an unconscious move. Another thing about 3, about that disconnection from the heart or that calculation, that can also be very helpful. Like it can be helpful to appropriately turn off feelings so that you can accomplish something. And that's why they can accomplish so much. But the problem becomes when you're always turned off from your feelings and you're always not quite sure what's motivating you and you have so many masks and so many layers that you don't even know who you are. They have a really hard time with identity. A 3 can dispassionately see and understand the lay of the land and move forward. Really great executives, right? But it's when they're dispassionate in their families or in other situations that can't quite transition or shift gears, that's when they start having conflict and it starts getting difficult. I love them. They're wonderful. On a team, they have their act together. Like, there are all these good things about 3s.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that breaks my heart about them, is that they get to a point where they're not sure, like they've done all this work to be worthy, and they're still not sure they are. They're still not sure that they could be loved for just them, that they could show up to the party and not be bright and shiny and like they could have good, deep, quiet conversations with people, and it would be fine. People would love them. And that's also that's the journey of the 3, is to like dig through all the stuff that you've put around your life, all your trophies, and to actually like understand, like, why am I doing this? I'm exhausted. 3s get burnout bad. Because eventually it's not enough. And they're really good. Like, they're Olympic gold medalists. Like, they're really good. Genuinely really, really good. But like Michael Phelps, just like totally burnt out, like totally disconnected. Like, why am I doing this? What is going on? And it's like the 3 almost has to get to that point. Like, get to the end of themselves and see, I want to be loved for me. I don't want to be loved by how many spelling competitions I win or how fast I can run. I don't want to be loved for the product. I want to be loved for the soul.
Right.
Really seeing them authentically who they are, and they don't have to do anything to earn it. Revolutionizes their lives.
That's awesome.
So my name is Isabel Safarik. I am originally from Western Nebraska, but I've lived in Lincoln, Nebraska for the past 5 years because I've been in school. Currently, I'm in grad school. I'm working towards a PhD in mathematics. I know Laura Lee because we were camp counselors together for 2 summers, right? Or just one?
That's
Or 2 summers. Still remember the first time we met. We were both sitting on bunk beds. And you're like, are you that high school kid they hired?
I'm Annie Purdue-Olson, and I'm from the Twin Cities, Minnesota, and I am a coach and consultant working with ministry leaders on how to create thriving teams. And I met Laura Lee on Facebook. So this is like actually our very first conversation. Brave and bold. We're both stepping out there.
Well, hi, I'm Yvette Walker. I am originally from Chicago, now living in Norman, Oklahoma, where I am assistant dean for the Gaylord College of Journalism and Mass Communication, which is at the University of Oklahoma. I'm a former journalist, so I've lived lots of different cities around the country. And before I started working at the university, I was working at a newspaper in Oklahoma City, the Oklahoman. So I moved around a little bit. I know Laura Lee from a podcasting association Facebook page where I heard about this project and I thought it was just so awesome. I said, yep, I raised my hand and said I'd love to participate.
So I'm a number 3.
And I'm an Enneagram 3.
And I'm a 3.
So, based on this test, you being a 3, your deadly sin is deceit. And I can explain that to you if you would like, but would you agree with that? And if so, how do you deal with it?
I think that it does kind of sound like something I can fall into.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about like wanting to contribute things. So this is maybe like wanting to contribute things. Then maybe sometimes I'll even deceive people into thinking that I'm contributing. If I go to office hours and I like get this really helpful hint from the professor and then I like go back and I figure it out, then maybe I'll just tell my friends like, I figured it out, you know, like,
Yeah.
but really I went to the professor and I got a helpful hint and then I figured it out. But maybe it's actually just because like I want to deceive people into thinking that I am more helpful than I am.
Oh, it's never about my mental state or how I feel. It's always about how I think people see me. Always.
Okay.
And that's what I think is about the 3. So I definitely have told a white lie to not appear faulty. If I make a mistake, just a random, like for instance, today, you know, like I left my phone at home today. Would I just say, oh, I left my phone at home? Or would I concoct some ridiculous story about, I don't know. I mean, just something, would I concoct something to make me seem less careless or to make me seem less ridiculous, yes, that's possible. Would I say something to try to make me appear less perfect?
You know, when I first heard that, I was just like flabbergasted. My jaw dropped and I was like, no way. Because integrity and authenticity are some of my top values. And I consider myself a very honest person. So hearing the word deceit was just almost like heart wrenching. It almost made me like, go, I'm not going to do anything with that Enneagram stuff anymore. It's one of those like things that was the dark language or negative language. But someone explained it to me as like self-deceit. It's like to deceiving myself that my feelings don't have an influence over my thinking and doing.
Yeah.
It's like the self-deceit, and then needing to find that congruence is like I deceive myself into thinking that I can actually put my feelings in a container and put them on a shelf and not have them influence my life. And that's ridiculous to assume that. It's deceiving myself to think that I could do that. So even at a big level, there's that self-deception that I think is a pretty easy trap to fall into. I think the other one that like just even simple forms like deceiving myself that I can get more done in a day than I actually can. That'd be like a 3, because it's all about getting things done and producing things, and the achieving and the producing and the performing is a key part of the core motivation for a 3. And so actually thinking that I can get more done than I actually can in a day, saying yes to maybe a few too many things, and are some of the like even the minor traits of where that deception comes in.
So, I mean, I recognize it immediately. I mean, when it happens, I know, yep, this is, yeah. I mean, I recognize it immediately. Again, it's not my mental state. I'm not thinking poorly about myself at all. I'm like, well, this just happened and it is what it is. But I do care about what other people think, and that other people might not think it is what it is. So I think mentally, I'm very stable. I have a lot of stability, I believe, going on. But then I guess the question is, why do I feel like I need to appear so perfect to other people?
And so, I mean, it's not that I think it's only self-deception. I think that it can lead to influencing in our relationships, in the sense that when that head and that heart is incongruent, we actually can leak our feelings on other people and not realize it. I was surprised. One of the things about that I read about a 3 that surprised me too is that they can be cold or hard, or not very relational. And I also consider myself like a very relational person and a very kind person. But in that, there is time when we put those feelings on our shelf and in a container, I think that we can leak them out. And for 3s, I think they come out in a little bit more abrasive or intense sort of way. Like one of the ways that people have referred to me in the past is that I can be a really intense person. So when I've led teams and had people that are like that I'm in charge of, they say I can be a little driven or a little intense. And I need to take in that feedback, because I can deceive myself into thinking I'm a warm-hearted, kind-hearted person, because it's how I feel inside, but it's not always how my behaviors come out, especially if I'm trying to manage my feelings or conceal my feelings or not have them control my life. I actually can come across harder than I actually feel on the inside. And so, I don't know, feedback, I guess, would be really important on probably any of our deadly sins as an Enneagram, getting feedback from others, because how we see ourselves versus how others see us is a little different. So I've come to actually understand what deceit probably means. And it's been a good thing, because it's helped me maybe face some things that other people see in me that I don't see in myself.
All right, so the next question is about the basic fear and desire. Every number has it, doesn't mean that you don't have other fears or other desires or whatever. But the basic fear and desire, for a 3, at least the research that I did, the basic fear is feeling or being worthless, like worthlessness. And then your basic desire is being valuable, feeling valuable, the valuable side of things. I just said valuable, so I wanted to put in the feeling and the being. Does this sound familiar? And if so, why do you think that is?
And I can't say that I've ever felt worthless. So I've never I've never kind of gone down that hole. But I can see that if I felt worthless, I would feel it would probably be really hard to do my job. It would be hard to, I think, perform in some of my relationships, because I would be that'd be a real fear. And it's also something maybe hard to talk about. So if I'm feeling worthless, it's probably the other person probably doesn't feel like that. But if I'm feeling that way, I can see how that would really cripple me in some relationships, be it personal or work. Being valuable, trying to coach, trying to help train, trying to not exert my will as a manager or a leader, but to try to help the people that I work with to become the best whatever they can be. I would think that would be a valuable skill.
Yeah, I definitely think I relate to both of those things, because when I can explain something to somebody, or like when I have a really good idea, then it's just like, oh yeah, like that feels really good. Maybe I don't feel so much like in my personal life afraid of the worthlessness, but I do want like to feel valuable. Like if I ever like make dinner, then I like fish for compliments a lot. I'm like, oh, like, don't you love this? Like, isn't this so delicious? Like,
Yeah.
And I know I do it, but I'm just like, oh, I can't stop like doing it. I love attention. So like so it's like, oh, I like gotta be in the action, when I'm in my lectures and it's like when I can't think of the answer, I feel horrible. And I'm like, oh, like everybody knows the answer to this. Like I have to think of the answer. Like I need to, maybe I don't have to answer every question, but I should answer like a few questions every time. But then I was thinking just yesterday, I'm like, most of the people in this class have never answered a single question. And I answer a lot of questions, but like, I feel like all the time, like, oh, I'm the only one who's not answering questions. But I'm like, no, like I know for a fact that like this person have never answered a question. And I'm like, and it's fine. Yeah. They're fine. They don't even care. Like
you wouldn't think that struggling with worthlessness would be the first thing that you would think of when you meet a 3, because what they present to the world and then what they feel on the inside is there's sometimes a little disconnect between that. I think for me, hearing the word worthless was like, wait a minute, I don't think that. But when I really truly take the time to pause and step back and think about what is my fear and what is my real struggle, it really gets at the core of it. I struggle with feeling like I can never do enough, be enough, produce enough, that my value rests in what I can do for you, not in who I am. I remember I hit a wall. This was probably 2 or 3 years ago, actually, about this fall time. And I was driving on the way to Rochester, which is about an hour and a half south of the Twin Cities here in Minnesota. And it was a beautiful fall day. And I was just praying and asking the Lord and really struggling with some insecurities and inadequacies and fears that I had about my parenting. And I was asking the Lord about it. And I just was like, I just remember out loud in the car saying, I am just not good enough. And I felt like at that moment, the Lord just spoke to me and said, yes, you are not good enough, but I am. And it was like, I just started bawling. I'm going to get teary remembering that experience. But I remember crying in the car on the rest of the way driving to Rochester, about to do a training, by the way, with about 40 people, bawling my eyes out and just saying, you know what, I received that. And I just felt like I was freed up from the need to always have to be good enough, to always, that what I produce is what matters most, because I don't have to be enough. I don't have to get good enough. I don't have to try harder. I don't have to do more. I simply can rest in the fact that Jesus is enough and he makes me enough.
There's a heart, head, and gut triad. Not that, people in the heart triad don't use their gut or their head. Not that people in the head don't use their heart or their gut. But this is kind of like the main thing that they're driven by. And so, for example, your triad or your number is in the heart triad. The heart triad, based on The Road Back to You, that book, is driven by feelings. They take in life based on feelings from the heart and are more image conscious. They ask, what will others think? And then 3s, all the numbers in the triad, like, deal with feelings differently. threes have trouble recognizing others and their own feelings. What in your life can attribute to being this triad based on kind of what I just said?
I think with all of these things, I feel like, oh yeah, well, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like since I'm like an aspiring mathematician that I should be more analytical. I try to be more analytical, but I actually think I'm not very analytical, and I do kind of but also, like women kind of get a bad rep for like being emotional, thinking with their hearts and stuff like that. And so I really like on the outside try to be like, no, like I'm very analytical. I like only think with my head, and I do.
Yeah.
But I also think like it is true. Like I have big feelings about things. I'm really like my emotions do affect my outlooks on different situations.
I still think that I have like a pretty high tuned radar when it comes to feelings. I'm tuned into feelings pretty well. So I see the world through the lens of feelings, which gives me, I think, a great advantage when it comes to like reading the room and what other people need, because I can see feelings on people's faces. I can read it in their body language. I'm tuned into it. So I really do think it helps me to see the world through those feelings, but I don't always acknowledge them or recognize them or act on the basis of my feelings. I tend to container them and put them on the shelf. So that's, and I act in accordance with like whatever strategy is in my head or whatever I'm trying to accomplish, that the doing becomes much more of a driver than the feeling. One of the things that really helps me feel affirmed and appreciated is when people share with me the impact that I've made on their lives. Like I've made a difference. I've given you an aha moment that you didn't have before. I said something that shifted the way you were thinking about things. That's not a bad thing. It's not like an ego thing. I'm not trying to feed an ego thing there, though I think that can be the unhealthy side of a three. I think it can be about ego and it can be about feeding that ego. But for me, it's just like, I really like to be loved, and God likes to be loved. It's a reflection of who God's character is. He wants to be worshiped and loved and adored, and he wants us to choose with our free will to fall in love with him and do that. So it is a reflection of who Jesus is and who God is, to say that I just want to be loved.
And I remember being in a meeting where I had to deliver some difficult news, and I kind of put my stoic face on. And then my direct report, the person who was working with me just below me, said, I have got to learn how you do that. It doesn't mean that I don't really feel terrible about having to deliver some bad news, but that's just what I've been taught to do. A lot of what I'm good at, I've been taught to do it. And I'm good at that. So it doesn't mean that I don't have butterflies in my stomach or anything like that. So say we have to do something, and whether or not it's at home or at work or even at church, but we have a job to do. We have to do something. We have a goal to accomplish. And someone, for whatever reason, is kind of falling down on the job about that. So I will try to pick that up or try to find somebody else to pick that up. At the same time, though, like later, I will come over to that person and I will say, what happened? Or, maybe at the time being, like in the moment, the feelings have to be put aside. But like immediately after that, then I'm back to the feelings.
Yeah.
So stress numbers. So like when you're stressed or unhealthy or insecure, you exhibit negative sides of a number. And then when you're healthy, insecure, and in a good place, then you exhibit the healthier sides of another number. So, for example, threes, when they're healthy and secure and everything, they go to the positive side of the 6. And when they're stressed and insecure, they go to the negative side of the 9. When nines are kind of unhealthy, they can shut down. They don't necessarily do the things that they need to be doing. They procrastinate a lot. They can be pushovers, or they merge with other people's feelings, so they don't really have their own sense of identity, and so they just kind of look to other people to see like how to react or how to feel or how to think. And they are the most out of touch with their anger as well. Peacemakers are. So does that, and they try to avoid conflict as much as possible. So does any of those things, the unhealthier sides of the 9, does that sound kind of stress?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I don't like confrontation. I know it's necessary, And when I have to do it, I do it, but I definitely don't prefer it. I'm not a combative person at all. Everyone has talked about, social media just being more in your face and more combative. And I definitely will put somebody on snooze for 30 days if it's just too much. Yeah, I definitely can see that. I can see that.
The only thing that helps me get less stressed is getting things done. So like when I like feel like I can't get anything done or like don't want to, then it's just like more stress, more stress, more stress. Sometimes if I'm feeling like super stressed out or like I have like so much to do and nothing is done, then it's like maybe I just need to like not text anyone back. And like then that's when I like don't. I feel like I do those things when I am in a good place. Since I like have my stuff together and I'm feeling good, like I can be more helpful to other people. But I'm very comfortable with like confrontation and like anger and stuff like that. So like I don't feel like that really describes me.
That's fair. Yeah, you are. I could definitely see that.
You know what? I see myself shutting down and I merge with others. When I get really stressed out, those are the two traits that I see the most is that I tend to take a back seat. My husband will notice it right away because I stop talking and I'm a talker. So I always have something to say. I was either doing something or saying something, right? And so when I get really quiet, my husband's like, okay, what's going on for you? You're stressed out, because I do tend to get quiet. I tend to withdraw. If I feel backed into a corner, I will give up. And so the fighter in me will go out the window and I will just simply merge and say, okay, you can have your way.
And then negative or the positiver side, that's not a word, the more positive sides of when, feeling secure and everything, you exhibit positive sides of the 6. Okay, so a 6 is known as the guardian or the loyalist. And when 6s are healthy, they focus on obviously being loyal to other people. They are focused a lot on, organization, communities, societies, being able to bring people together. They can see like the bad things in a situation. And when they're healthy, they can, use that knowledge and use that information to help others, help a community, help, things go better if they use that fear in a good way. And they can be very trustworthy and, good people to have on a team or in a relationship, because that they'll, have your back. So does those kind of things resonate with you?
So I definitely can see the loyal part. I definitely can see the preparedness. I mean, I'm not a prepper by any means. I don't overthink that stuff, but it's just very natural for me to be thinking about what could happen or what's ahead, and let's just be prepared,
Angles. My son is a 6. And so one of the things that is really interesting for me as I relate to him is just his ability to always see what could go wrong. And always see what we need to be thinking about in order to protect ourselves from. And so he speaks a different language than me completely when it comes to that. But I do notice that where I go when I have time to think is actually I can see through all of the different moves that could be made and all of the different contingency plans that might be out there. I tend to gather more information and ask more questions to be able to learn more about what it is that I'm doing. I feel like it helps me pace myself. I slow down a little bit and do maybe a more thorough job of whatever it is that I am doing, because I have time to go to that 6 space in my life.
So we are moving on to the portion of this interview. These last few questions are about Christianity, God, faith, all the good stuff. Not that the stuff wasn't good stuff, but yeah. I am kind of including Bible characters with each of the numbers.
Yay.
Obviously, we can't say these people are these numbers because they're dead and we don't,
right.
But
they can't ask them about their core motivation.
I know they would can't be like, hey, can you just like take this test? So not saying that we exactly know, but some of them have characteristics of it. As a 3, and you can definitely agree or disagree with these characters if you want to. The 2 characters that I have for 3 are Jacob and Moses. And the reason I had Jacob in there is because, at the beginning of his life with his brother Esau, kind of at the beginning, his mom tells him, oh, you can get the birthright if you just deceive your father. And so there's kind of like the little deceit in there. But at the same time, with Jacob, God used him later. And he definitely, stood up to God. He wrestled with God, literally. And so there was, that kind of side, because sometimes threes can be competitive. And then with Moses, Moses wrote much of the Old Testament, so it wasn't like he was just sitting around doing nothing. He was a leader, so he kind of performed even though he didn't know that he could. But at the same time, Moses, when God called him to do these great works for him, he was doubtful, and kind of going back to that feeling sometimes of worthlessness or, kind of doubting yourself in that way. So based on what you know about those two characters, about Jacob and Moses, do you think that you can relate with either one of them?
I don't see a connection to Jacob right off. He wanted to be, the main son. He wanted to represent his family, and he couldn't do that as the second son. So yeah, I mean, he definitely practiced deceit big time. And that's just straight up lying. And I have problems with Jacob. I mean, whenever I read that, but look what God did. And I always like to say that we do not have God's billion-mile high perspective. We're never going to have that. So, things that we're doing, he can turn to good just with the snap of a finger. And we just sometimes can't see that.
Yeah, I do. Maybe his mom was a 3 too, because she is like, oh yeah, like you should be deceitful and like fake it till you make it, go be a go-getter, get what you deserve, that's how to spin that deceit in a good way. Obviously, like, I'm in a PhD program, and it's gonna take me a minimum of 5 years to get my PhD. Like, it'll maybe take like 6 or 7 years, and maybe this is what Jacob was thinking too, like in the long run that won't be very much time at all, and I'll like come out with exactly what I want. I love math, and it's like interesting to me, but like one of the reasons why I like it so much is because, and I think one of the reasons why a lot of mathematicians like math is because of how challenging it is. If everybody could get a PhD in mathematics, then I would not want one. There's so much to know, there's so much to learn. Like, it takes a long time, it's very challenging. That's one of the reasons why I like it.
So, when Jacob went to meet Esau, you see that something has changed or shifted. Maybe it was the years with Laban and the whole situation with Leah and Rachel that kind of like shifted his heart and maybe created more of that head-heart congruence from that earlier deceptive Jacob to the one that now is actually meeting God and wrestling with God on the way back to meet Esau. His heart has changed. The self-deception that maybe he had earlier on in his years has shifted and changed. And he's got that head-heart congruence. And I feel like God brings it together in that moment, prepares him and readies him to be a father of a nation, which is really amazing.
But I can see Moses being, Moses was on the stage, on the front line. He didn't want to make a mistake. And his not wanting to make a mistake was not even for himself, but he didn't want to fail God, which is like even more important. I can definitely see, like, for example, when I am, on stage of some kind, and I am, say, reading scripture, I definitely want to do a good job, and feeling, if you make a mistake or if you don't get things right when you're doing a job for him. Yeah.
The thing I mostly think about when I think about Moses is how he's like, I'll do these things, but just like, don't make me speak in front of people. And God's like, I'll give you that ability. And he should have just like said, okay, like, just give me the ability. Like, maybe that's just like one part about him that I like can't get over. I'm just like, oh, why wouldn't you like take that?
And that, he's standing there in front of the burning bush and saying, I'm not enough. I can't go in there and do this. And it was God just saying, you're going to go in there. Here's my staff. And I'll give you Aaron, just because you're complaining. I'll give you Aaron. But you're going to go in there and you're going to do this because I'm going to do that. So I totally I connect to that whole Moses thing, just even from my own story of just like, and then the amazing things that he was able to do because he learned to lean into God. That journey of just like kind of establishing my own kingdom and then feeling like a little bit worthless and recognizing that I can't be enough, that my enoughness comes from him, and then being able to just in the presence of God experience who he is and be a reflection to the world. I mean, just like everything we've talked about feels like Moses symbolizes that.
Okay, so this next question is, do you have any Bible verses that have helped you in your life? And they can have to do with some things that we talk about today. They don't necessarily have to be, they can just be general. But any Bible verses that kind of have stood out to you, have helped you in your life?
John 16:33. I feel like so anxious and so stressed out, like so much of the time. I think especially the older I get, the more that's true. And I'm just like in general pretty high strung. But like it's just really nice to know like, oh, well, like I don't actually have to worry about anything. I am allowed to like have peace and find peace because like really Jesus has done all the work already. The only way I can get just unstressed is like if I just like cross these things off my checklist. It's good to know that those things don't matter that much. Even though they matter a lot to me, it's good to know that they actually don't matter. Does that make sense?
The last couple of years has been Matthew 11:28-30. I think that that's one of the things that that whole verse of like learning from Jesus, joining with Jesus, being at his feet, finding rest in Jesus has been something that has been an anchor in my life. And as a 3, I need that anchor because I can get consumed by the doing. And I don't want to. I choose not to be consumed by the doing. And this come all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Find my rhythms of grace. Come to me and join with me. And that whole thinking just it anchors my soul.
Yep, it's Psalm 46:10. The reason why I stand on that is because I'm not still a lot of the times. I mean, my mind is always racing. I'm always thinking about something, the next thing to do or what I didn't do, so that when I lay down and I want to have quiet time with him, it is so hard to turn my brain off. So hard. That is something that I strive for. I mean, I don't succeed a lot of the time. I fail in that a lot. But that's something that I look for, I strive for. I have a big kind of wooden sign in my house that says be still. And I think in that action, in that very act of being still and just giving it all to him, that's when we can hear him and know that he's the most important thing in your life and should be the most important thing on your mind. And so when I can do that and when I can just push everything away and just really focus on him, then I can hear him clearly. And that's really difficult. And I'm not able to do that as much as I would like, but something I work on.
Yeah. This is the second to last question. And we've kind of talked about this a little bit throughout, but if you want to say anything else, how has God played a major role in your life and struggles with some of these aspects we've talked about today?
I think definitely confronting lies that I believe with truth has been a key piece of it. I think helping me understand and know that I am fully loved and embraced exactly the way I am, that I am a reflection of who he is. I don't have to dislike or change anything about myself to be loved. Now, I may want to change or grow because of who I want to become or the people that I want to be in relationship with and what they need from me. But I'm loved and fully accepted and pleasing to God, simply the way that I am.
Most of the people I work with are not Christians, like have had really bad experiences with Christians. So they're pretty like anti-Christian. So they see Christians as a lot of times ignorant and like people who are purposefully closing their eyes to science. I like love to acknowledge that and say like, yes, like a lot of Christians do purposefully close their eyes to science. And like, yes, you can feel justified in feeling hurt and persecuted by the church because like that was wrong and like that is wrong and like I'm really sorry. And I think people can tell that I just have a little bit more inner peace. And I think some of my friends think like, oh, well, that's why she's a Christian, is so that she can like buy into this thing and like have some inner peace. But they know like it's the source of my peace. It's an interesting opportunity to witness to people. I wish I had more answers when like people ask me questions, but like, I feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm the only Christian that this person is friends with. God has a plan and it's going to work out. Well, yeah, it's going to work out in the long run because anything good that I do is all God. And like, if I screw something up, like that's okay. He already knew I was going to screw it up. So like, yeah.
God has opened my heart in a big way to him. I mean, the last couple of years, me feeling strongly about wanting to honor him through the gifts he's given me can go at odds sometimes with my threeness. If I decided that I just couldn't do anything until it was perfect, then I would never have started this podcast. I mean, I literally just said, let's just do it. We'll see what happens. I feel like I'm in such a deeper, richer relationship with Christ and with God the Father and the Holy Spirit than I have been in a long time. And I've been a believer for all my life, but this is different. And I think that because of the good parts of the three, but then the sins, as you put it, I think that it could go at odds with what I'm trying to do, because I could get paralyzed and not actually be able to achieve anything, or, just feel slothful and not want to do anything. And so I think he's working with me on that.
Okay, so the last question is, what encouragement or advice would you say to someone who is also your number?
So I think the idea of being successful and wanting to do well is great. And I would encourage people to do that, to be good. I mean, I think that we have to have some distinction and to separate ourselves from others so that we can be the best that we can be. But we have to be the best that we can be. And we can't really worry what other people think about us, which is where I think we get into the sin of deceit, and then that crippling fear of just not wanting to do anything because of where we land. So I think being successful is great. Being a successful achiever is great, and we should do that. But we should work on ourselves and be the best that we can be, not how other people are looking at us.
Maybe my advice would be just remember your thoughts, or I don't like to say you, so I'll say me. I need to remember, and if this applies to you, that's okay too. I need to remember that not my thoughts are not everyone's thoughts. You can fall into being worried that people think a certain way, but maybe that's not how they think at all.
And I think that feelings aren't bad. So to really be willing to go there you can really experience some really powerful freedom. And we need to live life at the pace of grace, which means that we are leaning into God and his graciousness in our life, his enoughness, his everythingness, and we operate at that pace. So not at my pace, which is the natural tendency of a 3, to be an overachiever and to do more, to be more, to produce more, is instead to choose the pace of grace. So if you are struggling and feeling overwhelmed, like you're not enjoying life enough, which I think can happen for 3s, or you're not enjoying the people that you love enough, step back and recalibrate to find a pace of grace so that you can really treasure the relationships that you have.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, wow, this is incredible that you made it to the end of the video. Thank you for checking out. I hope that it truly did inspire you, encourage you in your faith, in your walk, and that it did remind you that you are not alone. That's right. You said it in your head or said it out loud before I said it. So yeah, I hope it really did. So thank you for watching, and we will see you soon. The other links, before I go, the other links are in the description if you want to check out the other episodes. So have a great day, and we'll see you soon.